The topic for this painting is motifs, and a motif, we're going to look at motifs from textiles. Now, a motif is something that's repeated. So you see textiles or fabrics that have images that are repeated, and I'm showing you a few samples now. So I'm pulling just parts of these into my drawing. So you can see the one I have up in the corner. I'm just starting with that dark teal color in the center, and I'm just using that piece, only that piece, one thing at a time, and I'm drawing it very large inside my square. I made my square about 8 inches by 8 inches. So I'm just doing the best I can, simplifying it a little bit, looking at some curves. You can pick your own textile motif that you would like, and I have some samples in our classroom for us as well. So you can see I'm making it nice and big. I simplified it. I didn't add everything that's in there, but I'm filling that square pretty good with that general teal color, and I didn't even do it all. I just enlarged it. So next I'm going to add another piece to it, and you can see the lighter teal colors. I just took a little part of some of those and added it. So there's a lot of negative space in here. So I'm doing a variation of the dark blue design or motif that's in the middle. So that's a little simple right there. So I added the circle, but I thought I needed another petal like in the flower. So I just added a fourth to thicken it up a little bit and take up a little more space. And you notice that I'm putting this behind the first drawing. So this is further back in the space. And each time I do a layer, I go further back in the space. So the one I started out first with is overlapping everything else. It's not being covered up at all. Now keep in mind as you do some additions that having an odd number is always better than having an even number. So I did 3 of those little circle flower things. And then I thought I still had some space left over. So I took the lighter teal in the very background and added a design in there as well behind everything. I keep going back and back and back. Okay, so now this bottom right corner was a little empty, so I thought that little sun ray flower image was cool. So I'm just having it in the corner. So I'm starting out with the circles, start with the basic shapes, and you can see how I started with a line and then drew the petal so that it all radiates from the center. And again, this is going in the very furthest background, so you don't see much of it. Okay, so there's my design based on the motifs. It is time to paint, my favorite part. So you need your watercolors, water container, a paper towel or something, and optional salt. So start out by getting just a drop of paint, activate that paint in there. Now think about your color choices. I like to go with some contrasting colors, but then I also like to be harmonious, so they're closer on the color wheel in some spots. But I usually think about warm versus cool. So the very first step is you're just painting the negative space of everything. So that's where there's no design at all. And actually, I'm not even painting it right now. You can see that I'm just adding clean water. Now remember, the paint only goes where it's wet right now. So I'm going to drop color into that area of water. Now, I don't have so much water in here that it's dripping. My little paper here is upright on an easel. So I'm just popping in water, and the water only goes where it's wet. And sometimes you have to push it a little bit out to the edges. Once you get a little section done, you can try to add a little bit of salt. Just a little bit. You don't want very much. And you'll see in a few minutes how that makes a little starburst. So I continue in that negative space and adding some blues, and you can see where I pop in some purple sometimes, and at times I'm going to actually add some greens too. So there's my blue kind of spreading around, and I push the color out to the edges a little bit, but I'm just see how it bleeds out, it blends together. So I'm moving forward, I'm adding a little bit of purple to it so you can change that background color a little bit as you go. Just letting the paint, add a little bit of salt, the paint just goes where it's wet. Just work in sections at a time, and you can see the starbursts that are starting to happen. I'm continuing with my background, and as I go to the top left corner, I'm adding more greens to my blue, and then I did it on the bottom right corner, some more greens too, so purple's kind of in the center. And again, you can see the starbursts that are happening throughout. Now your next step is to let it dry. You have to let this dry. Okay, so now I'm doing the very same thing, water in the next layer closest to me. And then I'm adding a contrasting color. So I'm adding a warm color. I kept the background kind of all cool colors, so I'm adding a warm color, letting the water go in where it's wet. Now notice I'm leaving a little bit of a white line sometimes in there to keep the paint from bleeding together. Even if it gets wet, it might bleed together, and if it does, it's really not a big deal. But you want to, this is about control and making color choices. And you can see I kept a green in that middle ground that I'm painting now. I kept that a little harmonious or close on the color wheel to the blue background. And then I'm going with a warm color in that little starburst again, or that little sunflower or whatever it is. So I'm kind of going a yellow green there. Again, a little bit harmonious, but a warmer color. And the very last one, I added some purples or red violets kind of actually to the very front area. The choices that you make here in colors and patterns are up to you, but you're really not making a pattern. Remember, you're just pulling pieces from some textile ideas, okay? You're not making a pattern, you're just pulling parts of it. So I have some more ideas here. You can stop the video and use some of these ideas, or you can find some of your own, or I also have some available to you. So just little bits and pieces of these that you're combining, like I did, into your final piece.